Everything okay back there, Noah?
I think that's what this is.
Okay. That's a thumbs up, but it was for you or for me? Welcome to June, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Does everybody have a door prize ticket thingy? Okay, that's good. Where's Kathy? Kathy's still out front. Oh, there she is. She's back there with Lizzie. What is the door prize today, Kathy?
The door prize today is Marionberry Preserves.
Marionberry Preserve. Those are the best. Tualatin Historical Society's infamous Marionberry Preserves. I want to do a quick rundown for you about upcoming events before I hand it over to Barb. And we have some really great stuff coming up. First of all, not only today and the Robbins and Barb's trail over the Oregon, trekking over the Oregon Trail. But in July, Spread the Word is our annual picnic. It's Wednesday, July 6th, starting at about 4-ish. We're going to have a food truck again there this year. It was very popular last year. That'll start serving food around 5. But we're also going to have something new this year. A gentleman named Dick Carmen, and he does old time radio. He's going to be playing radio music from the 40s and 50s. So that'll be kind of background music that'll be playing. And Dick has helped us out before. A couple of years ago, he did a program here. And so we'll have music and we'll have food. And it's open to everyone. Don't have to be a member. So spread the word. Don't make dinner that night. Come on out and get something to eat from the food truck. We have a change for August from what we had previously mentioned, some last minute adjustments, but this is even better. Dr. Thomas Laurie from the University of Linfield is going to be here to talk about how Oregon got its name. And it's, much to my surprise, it's a little bit more complicated than I thought. He's published in the Oregon Historical Society's quarterly journal. There's a very long article in there that he co-authored, but he's going to come here and share it with us on that history. And of course, September is our Heritage Evening. More on that to come. Once we get past today and the July's picnic, we're going to start rolling up our sleeves and working on that. That's out here on our patio. We'll have wine and beer and some snacks and stuff, and probably a few smaller things, larger things to auction off. That'll be really great. And October, what we're working on right now is to talk about early businesses on Boone's Ferry. This is even before I-5 came and everything. There were a lot of businesses along Boone's Ferry that no longer exist. One's still there, the Robinson Brick Store. At least that building is there, and now has Mashitas and the VFW, is that Bob? Thank you. And so that's, and we have other things in the works too. So we have a lot of great program lineups for you. And if you ever wonder what's going on, just go to tualatinhistory.org, to our webpage. Not only do we have articles about our history, oral histories, recent news, but also most importantly, or one of the most important things is that calendar there telling you what events are going to be happening in this building at that time. So when Barb's done today, I'll get back up here real quick to invite you to some coffee and some cookies. And also we're going to figure out who won the door prize. But today I'm going to introduce Barb Stinger. If you don't know her, I think everybody does, but if you don't, she's been a longtime supporter of the Tualatin Historical Society as a director, as our treasurer, as co-historian, as the person who's always around on Pioneer Days, and just always there in the background helping us. And I'm kind of disappointed, Barb, that you didn't actually wear your dress today. I thought you'd have that on. Yeah, but you were going to put it on, right?
No.
No, okay. She's not going to put it on. So
Not like
maybe
this good in pants.
if she does a really bad job today, I'll put it on to make sure we have a good program, okay? But now it's your show, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
I was thinking yesterday, I had a cousin of mine pass away a couple days ago, and they had a party for him yesterday. And I was looking at the family, and I was looking at how many people were there. How many people I didn't know, because they were all younger than me. But I come from a very large family. Um, but I thought you might need to know why I'm in Tualatin, why I'm not in Wilsonville, why I'm not somewhere else, why I'm doing Tualatin. And this is how I stay. My mom, Iva Ball, was raised off of 79th in Tualatin. They farmed 180 acres. They got 60 acres, then the next generation got 60 more acres up 79th in Bonita here, and it went up. But by the time my mother was being raised, they had all that. She was the third of 10 children. And she would say, she was schooled in Tigard. Her name was Iva Ball. During the summer, she talked about catching crawdads out of Sucker Lake for lunch. She talked a lot about growing up and all the freedom they had. She said, up in the morning, and the land was their playground. My grandfather farmed and sold crop in Portland. My grandmother, Nancy Ball, raised 10 children. I guess you might say Tualatin is in my blood. For listening to my mom and all of her adventures. All that brings me to the wagon train that brought many of my family from Decatur County, Indiana, to Oregon City. So my talk is the Oregon Trail. And I'm going to read a little bit of it, because if I don't, I'll get way ahead of myself. The Oregon Trail crossed the country. About 3,000 people traveled from Independence, Missouri to Oregon City. The trip was 2,170 miles long, and it usually took about 6 months. The pioneers left Missouri about April 15th. They didn't leave earlier because they wanted to make sure there was grass for their cattle to eat along the way. And they wanted to make sure that they got through the Oregon Blue Mountains before the snow fell. The wagon trains started in 1936 and continued until 1836 and continued until 1860. Our family had relatives traveling to Oregon 1845, 1852, 1853, 1860, and 1865. I'm going to talk about the 1852 trail. The wagon was marked with all Robbins families. The family of Dr. Nathaniel and Nancy Robbins, they had 11 children who came with them to Oregon. Of these children, they were married. They brought their spouses and their other children. This wagon train had 24 people with 3 generations and 22 wagons, mostly farm wagons. They had 6 hired help to take care of the wagons and driving them. Our family moved a lot. They came from North Carolina, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana. So they moving to Oregon was pretty natural. They heard about the free land and the land that was paradise. You could grow anything in the Oregon Territory. They also started hearing about railroad taxes in Decatur County, Indiana. Now, Dr. Nathaniel Robbins decided he did not want to pay taxes. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So he sold his farm and brought his whole family to Oregon. He heard from his sister, who came to Oregon in 1845. She knew the governor of the Oregon Territory, and who promised Dr. Nathaniel could be part of the organization of the government of the state of Oregon. The family left Indiana in the fall of 1851. They wintered over in a small town called Dark Creek, Missouri. Now, as mothers do at that time, Melinda Robbins was expecting her 7th child. A daughter, Melissa Ann, was born. during the winter of 1851. Yeah, she's up there. And the family was collecting supplies for their long trip. The family left Deer Creek, Missouri on April 15th, 1852. They traveled 10 miles. It took them 1 month to reach St. Joseph. This was to be their starting off point for the Oregon Trail. They crossed the Missouri River on May 15th on a ferry. The wagons were farm wagons, and they'd been used as their farms and their neighbors' farms. There wasn't much places to sleep instead, so each night the feather beds were taken out from the family to sleep on. The family traveled through the north corner of Kansas and into Nebraska, was where there were many rivers. The Little Blue, the Big Blue, the Mosquito, Nehom, the Wolf River, and many others. They crossed these rivers many times as they were wandering across the land. The two rivers they mention in the family letters are the Little Blue River and the Big Sandy. Now, May 30th, 1852, 3 daughters took sick with cholera. They all died within 24 hours. They were buried together, wrapped in a quilt, along the Little Blue River. The daughters were Emmeline, Amanda, and Mahala. The following day, the son-in-law, Absalom Barnes, died of cholera also. With the death of Absalom and Emmeline, these 2 sons, who were being raised by their grandparents, Nathaniel and Nancy. The family traveled very close to Fort Kearney, but did not stop for provisions. They sent one of the hired men, John Lewis, back to the doctor because he was sick. At this time, the family was traveling 25 miles a day through the state of Nebraska. They were traveling along the North Platte River. When they crossed the river, pioneers had to pay fees to use the ferries. Well, being my family, and they didn't have much money, they always would go down the river and they would go up the river and they would check and see how much rocks were around. And then they would talk to wagons that were returning, because some days they said you would see as many returning because they said no more, can't take it, that we're actually going to investigate the trail. And they would ask them where there were good places to cross. Storms. The record of storms that the wagon experienced. One night the wind and lightning came, and it was so bad the rain was blowing sideways. All they could do was hang on to their tents and wait for the storm to pass. The next day, they say, they hung out all their clothes and bedding to dry out. In 1852, my family was very lucky. Not much Indian action. They had one encounter. It was an Indian who wanted to buy Nancy Jane, who was 4 years old. The Indians offered her father 6 ponies in exchange for his daughter. It is recorded that the Indians admired her red hair. Of course, she was not sold, but she was kept hidden in the wagon for several days. The Indians were bought off with gifts. It is recorded several days when they spent the area of Ash Hollow in June 22nd, 1852. They fed the stock, washed their clothes, collected wood for the weeks to come. And I can just imagine, okay, I'll just say this, Ken and I at one time, how many years ago, got in our pickup and took the Lewis and Clark that way, and then we did the Oregon Trail this way. There were several places where you could just see where they would have just hanging their sheets and hanging everything to dry out because of the weather. But anyway, it was recorded they spent the day in Ash Hollow. It was June 2nd, 1852. They fed their stock, washed their clothing, and collected wood for the week to follow, because from then on, there wasn't much wood. 4 days later, they caught the sight of Chimney Rock. From the Robbins wagon train rode out of camp, it is said that they wrote their names on these rocks. Nobody has been able to find them, and I have to admit we didn't take the time to look. They were traveling at that time 10 to 15 miles a day. Fort Laramie. This was a big fort, and with many Indians camped outside of the fort. Dr. Nathaniel wrote a letter home telling about the loss of his 3 daughters and son-in-law. It was posted at that post office. I will read what he wrote. August 21st, 1852. Dear sister, these lines will tell you that there's no change in the health of my family since I last sent you a letter. I received a letter from Dr. Nathaniel on the last Saturday of this date, Fort Laramie, Nebraska Territory. It states he and his family are all well and alive. So that's what is written on it by somebody who received the letter. But this is what it said. He lost his daughter on the 30th of May with cholera. Mahala died 7:30. Emmeline died 9:30, and Amanda 12:30. They were all put together in one grave on a high mound 1 mile west of the Big Sandy. They moved forward some 6 or 7 miles to the Little Blue. There, Absalom Barnes died and was buried on the mound on the side of the road. I received this letter from John, his son William, which told us that all was well. The letter was dated May. We had a great drought here, short corn crop, very much. We have plenty of rain at this time. This was written by William. If you haven't guessed, I used to do this all the time for 4th graders, and I'd come into their class before COVID and all this crap that we've had now. Anyway, and so I would do this, and I would have all this, and they could come up and touch it. I think several times I might have done it also here. Indian encounter. The family was very lucky. The Indians did not seem to bother them in 1852. Okay. Shall we go the other direction? Independent Rock. They traveled up the river 10 miles to cross the Platte River. They got stuck across the Sweet Waters in Independence Rock. They traveled about 6 miles to Devil's Gate. They lost 11 horses. They were found on the other side of the Devil Gate. The family mentioned crossing the Continental Divide. I think this is great, where they saw the streams from going east, going west. They talk about soda springs that boiled like a dinner pot. They made soda beer to be enjoyed with dinner. I think today it might be called root beer. About this time, they encountered different groups selling potatoes, 10 cents a pound and 5 cents for 1 onion. The record shows that they did not buy much. The Snake River. They traveled along the river for several weeks. As it went through the land, so did the trail. At one of the many falls on the Snake River, they saw native fishing. The family talked about meeting Indians on Salmon Fall, where they introduced them to fish salmon. Now I'm just recording exactly how it was written down. Salmon, fish, fish, salmon. They traded fish for items that were no longer needed. At this time in the trip, they were stopped so often to rest their cattle and replace their wagons. As the family traveled into Oregon, the evenings were getting cooler. They passed Fort Boise with many trails taking it off into California, but no, they're coming to Oregon. Then Farewell Bend. This is where they said their goodbyes, the Snake River. The trail was taking the family up the Burnt River and into Baker City. The trail was very hard to climb. Wagons and cattle were wearing out. The daughter of Dr. Nathaniel and Nancy Jane, took sick and died along the Powder River, just outside of Baker City. This is how they said it. They buried her on a tall hill and marked the grave and just moved on. Blue Mountain. It all started in October. The family had been on the trail since April. 5 months. Food almost gone, wagons falling apart, cattle dying, and the bodies of family just plain tired. The Blue Mountains were a very hard part of the trail to travel. The Robbins train decided to stop for a week to rest, to take stock of the cattle and the condition of their family. It was during this stop at La Grande that Dr. Nathaniel decided he would just cruelly to drive the wagon Doctor decided to drive the worn out cattle another mile. A conference was held at the evening campground. It was decided that the family would not take the long trail. They would take the short trail, and they would pass the Columbia River. That's not them, but that's a piece of art that I bought. The last October, as they arrived at the Dalles, it took several days to find a boat that would take the family 50 to 60 miles to Cascade Falls. They put 3 of their wagons on the flatboat and traveled a very windy, cold trip. At Cascade Falls, the family members had to take their belongings, pack them in little carts, which was drawn by mules, and it was called the Railroad Around the Falls. If you go up there in the Columbia River and you just think of the Columbia River from the Dalles down, and there's a little island right there, and it kind of splits the river, I believe that's what they're talking about. The boat took 4 days. They arrived in Oregon City the 12th day of November, and the family wintered at a home in Lynn City, across the Willamette River from Oregon City. It took the family 7 months to travel the Oregon Trail. And this is just kind of history before I take any questions. What happened since then? Well, Dr. Nathaniel helped write the educational part of the Oregon Constitution. But later, being he was a doctor, he drowned in the Tualatin River, paddling across it, trying to be a doctor and help out. Nancy lived till 1880. William Robbins died in 1856 of a gunshot from his own gun while hunting. He sat down and shot himself, not on purpose. Melvina Robbins remarried and lived until 1880. Nancy Adeline Robbins Ball had 3 children and lived in Tualatin with her husband on 80 acres. She lived until she was 91 years old. And that's where we are today. Yes.
Where is the land located in Tualatin today, so that we would know?
Is there a place called the Rock Pile out south of Tualatin? Larkin Ball had the Rock Pile as his donation land claim. And another donation land claim is the cemetery. And then if you go down one more generation, then if you get 79 that comes right off of 217 just before it gets into I-5 and all the way down, that's all my mother's land. That was my mother's playground.
It was up by for the people who don't know, it was up by the hospital, right?
No, hospital's that way. This would be north.
But didn't your family own land on 65th and Hospital?
Oh, yeah, but not not my mom's family. That would be all these. These are but yeah, but these are, there's Dr. Nathaniel's 1852. There's Sweeks. I'm trying to see if I could find. Anyway, we'll look at it a little bit later and show you. But
Isaac Ball?
hmm?
Isaac Ball?
Isaac Ball is the one that had the rock pile.
Isaac Ball was a cemetery.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Yeah, the Ball Cemetery, I wasn't even thinking that. I was just thinking land. But no, that's out here. Do you mean the big cemetery? Yes, Winona Cemetery. Yes, Isaac, thank you. I gave it to Larkin and Isaac instead. Okay. A brother is a brother. Any other questions?
Are you going to talk about your trek across part of the trail, Barb?
Oh, yeah, I will. In 1993, Oregon was celebrating the Oregon Trail. And one of the things is it 93, Kenny? 93. Okay. One of the things is if you paid so much money a day, they had 10 wagons and army men and services. We couldn't do it today in the world we live in. It would be too dangerous just because what people would be doing. But anyway, then you said, yeah, I think it was it $40 a day? Yeah. I think $40 a day. And this is what's really interesting, is when this came about, that they were going to offer this to anybody who wanted to pay this much money. And sometimes I asked Ken if I can do something. I didn't. I just said to Ken, I said, I'm going on this. And he said, how are you paying? And I said, I don't know. And he said, I can't go with you because I'm still working. But yes.
It was apocalyptic. It was $40, 40 days and 40 nights.
See?
Repeat what they say. 'Cause
Okay, what he said, okay, it was 40 days, 40 nights, and $40 a day. See, better memory than I have. Okay, anything else that don't be smarty pants.
So did you do the full 40-day, 40-night trip?
Of course.
And repeat the question.
Oh, he wanted to know if I did the 40-day, 40-night. And I said, of course. Of course. Who wouldn't? A lot of people didn't. I had some cousins that did it for a couple days. But I come from a family of people who've walked, as I'm reading more of my history, and walking was nothing for me. Yeah. Yes.
My impression of people coming across the Oregon Trail is that it was groups of people, families, and there would be a wagon master or a leader of some sort. It sounds like it was just your family.
I think,
all by themselves
okay.
without any.
Yeah. I will repeat what she wanted to know. She said she thought that when wagon trains came across the trail, that it would be led by a leader. And I would say, I think some did, but our family, it was the Robbins, and they actually, the matriarch and patriarch were the leaders, and the rest of the people came. So I may not have explained this, but when they came from Indiana, they brought 3 generations. So they brought everybody who was in Indiana at that time in one family, all 3 generations, and they got on the trail. Yes.
Now you said that you had 6 hired men to help with the wagons and cattle. Were they experienced? Had they ever been across the trail before?
Okay, she wanted to know that if the people that they hired to come with the trail as workers, had they been trained? Had they been on? I can't tell you that, but I'm assuming in that era, everybody could drive a wagon, and everybody was pretty well equipped to take care of anything out in the wilderness. But it definitely does not say that they were. But it was just that I think they felt that because there were so many women coming, that they needed some more strong men. Yes.
Can you just share a couple of highlights of your 40 days and 40 nights?
You want to know if I could share any highlights of the 40 days and 40 nights? First of all, I met some very marvelous friends that are still friends, but an awful lot have passed away since then. But there was 8 of us that started in Palmer, Idaho, and actually did all the time. So we were really good friends. In fact, I have a picture of them somewhere. But anyway, really, really nice friends. But I have to admit that of those 8 people, I think there's only 2 of us alive. And I'm not the oldest. So they were, yeah, not everybody was real healthy. But it was, have you ever wanted to do something so bad, if you're a golfer or if you're a boater or anything, and you really want to do it bad? That's kind of where I was. It was just something that I needed in my gut that I needed to do. And I don't know whether, I think it was just my family, in my family's history. But yeah, it was a marvelous, yes.
So, were you sleeping on the trail? Going to hotels when you came? What was the sleeping
Oh,
like?
okay. It was really interesting. Remember, he said I paid $40 a day. They actually carried my sleeping gear in a wagon. And they also furnished meals at the end of the day. And that's where that $40. Oh, and a shower. Excuse me. But yeah, but so it would be, if you just think of, for me, if you would think of any trip you've been on, and and we've done enough traveling, and I've been in France, and this was just, it's a once in a lifetime experience. But that would be for me, maybe not for other people, but for me it was a once in a lifetime. And I think in my heart, I was trying to prove that if I had been born in the pioneer time, that I could have been just as strong as the people in my family that came across. That's what I think. I think it was just you kind of have to know me. You just have, I gotta prove something. But it was great. Yes, Karen.
How many miles did you walk a day?
How many miles did I walk a day?
15,
Nope.
maybe to 20.
On the trail?
Yeah.
40. No,
40
15 or 20. I don't know. I just walked till they told me I had to stop. Yes.
How did the pioneers, was the trail marked so other than ruts and the predecessors had made with the wagons, did they blaze trees or anything to try to give?
He wanted to know, was a trail marked, and I want to say yes, and I want to say no. After several days, several years of wagons coming through, and they pretty much did the same. Some would come in Oregon City, some would come into the Dalles and then come down. So, but it was well worn. Let's put it that way. It was well worn. Yes. Yes.
Did you teach your students about the Oregon Trail?
Did I teach my students about the Oregon Trail? I don't think they had a chance not to know about the Oregon Trail. Yes, I did. But I think what I really did, I did more working with fourth graders throughout Washington County. And since that's where I worked as a teacher before I retired, that I was available for any teacher who wanted me to come and talk about the Oregon Trail. It was a love of mine. And it's really fun to share, because it's fun to watch the kids' eyes just open up. And they just sit there quietly and they listen. But when I talk to students, I'm always at their level. You know, I'm down on the floor. Yes.
How did they transport the Robin's Rose on the trail?
How did they transport the Robin's Rose on the trail? Well, first of all, these dresses are the ones that I wore on the trail. Okay, but since I wasn't pregnant, I had no pockets. But most of the women were pregnant, so they had pockets. This right here is called a purse. And this goes under your dress, but to the side, and you can get into that dress, and that is your purse. The Robin's Rose came in Nancy's purse. And it's actually written in the book that this rose comes from Nancy. And the first one is planted here in Tualatin. He used to be part of a member, can't think of it, but anyway, the first rose is actually planted here. And it grows like weeds. It's a moss rose, if you'll notice. If anybody wants it, you can have it. It starts anywhere off. Yes.
Can you tell where it is outside?
Can I tell where it is outside? All you have to do is go out there and you can see the pink. But there's one,
Through the area.
oh, there's one out here and there's one out on that corner.
How old was Nancy when she came on the trail?
How old was Nancy when she came on the trail? She wants to know how old Nancy was when she came on the trail. I do not know. I do not know.
How about the robins and the balls?
She wants to know about the robins and the balls. Well, they both came to the Tualatin area. They both got donation land claims. Nathaniel. Oh, I know one. This is the first teacher, and this is a ball. And how in the devil did they get together? How did they get together, Lois?
I don't know, but two robins married two balls.
Oh, that's right. But the balls did not come on the wagon train. She wanted to know two balls married to two robins, and that's true. But the balls did not come on the wagon train. They were, what I want to say, they came up from the south, and they came into the Tualatin area, and I want to say they were in construction of some sort, but that's not the term I want. And there happened to be two good-looking Robins girls, and they got together. Now, but she's going to tell me a little bit different. But that's not why they married. That's not why they got married. Oh, okay. She said she thought they had donation land claim, but
One of the balls was, the original ball, I suppose, used to work for the government.
that's what it was. Both the balls worked for the government. And so, but they were here at the same time that the robins were coming in, and men will be men and women will be women.
And where is Isaac Ball's place now?
Isaac Ball's place.
Where was he? His land claim.
I don't know the land claims as well as you do, but I thought Isaac Ball had the rock.
He had 160 acres of cemetery, was Isaac Ball's place.
Oh, out here.
I remember Isaac Ball's house, the city just tore it down a few years ago.
Yes, yes. Well, we have the cemetery here, which was Winona.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so you're okay, gotcha. But that was Isaac's. I thought that was somebody else's, another ball. Okay.
He married Margaret. He married Margaret.
She could give me my history, can't she? No, that's okay. But see, I have this book.
It's for sale.
No. We have a historian, Kevin. He wrote this book, and this is all the history of the robins. Okay. Any more questions that Lois can answer for me? I'm sorry. I'm being sarcastic.
Tell them the thing that we found out about when we were going through records.
This place here?
She was buried out of this church. Remember we found out? I found it for you.
Well, I don't remember. She said she thought that Nancy was married in this church, but I think I might disagree.
When she died, her service was in this church.
Oh, I do not know.
Yeah, it was in her. I found it in your records. Thing about her. I told you.
My memory is not what it used to be. Anything else? Yes.
Could you show us the shoes that you wore?
Oh. 2 dresses. She wanted to know the shoes I wore. And I wore these tennis shoes from the start of Idaho all the way to Oregon City. And I came so close to throwing them into the Willamette River. And I'm not sure whether it was Ken told me not to, or I finally decided these might be worth something, or I might need to show them. But I wear the same thing. But as soon as I got off the trail, then I went into a pair of sandals. But these are Nikes. Ooh, that was expensive for me. Yes.
I'm going back to the dresses. Why would pregnancy determine, or lack of being pregnant or not, determine pockets or not? What's the story there?
Oh, he said, why was pregnancy or not pregnancy in the pockets on a dress? Haven't worn a dress lately, have you?
Not since I was pregnant.
Okay. They only had several dresses. So they had to go along with whatever was happening in your body to first. And being men and being women, that somewhere along the trail, a baby was conceived and a baby was born. Okay. And if you have only 2 dresses, it has to grow with them in your body. But as far as the side slits, see this here? This is my wallet. That went under the dress. To get into my wallet, I had to be able to get through those here.
And so pregnant women wouldn't have a purse and.
No. You could be pregnant or not. I think all the dresses came this way. Most of the dresses, unless you were really highfalutin, were not waist. They were this kind of sack look. That's what I was made to believe, but I really don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Probably they all had slits. They probably all had purses underneath.
Well, just think. I can't carry my purse this way, but if I have it in there, and somebody wants my jewels, well, they'd have to do something with my dress before they could get into my purse. It's just to me, it's just a really deep pocket. But what I think is really nice is that in the writings of Nancy, she does write about bringing the pink rose, to Oregon. She does definitely write it. The start of the robin's rose came in one of the pockets like that. Anything else that I can answer? And yes, hon.
Regarding, somebody asked about how many miles a day. You take 537 divided on average 13 miles per hour.
That's the mathematician I'm married to. Clever. Well, he's that too. I thought we traveled more than 13 miles. It seems like we've traveled a lot, and it was dusty, and it was hot, but it was a trip of a lifetime, and it's something that um, I'm just so glad I was able to do it. And I would suggest if it ever comes up again, which I'm sure it won't, because we live in a completely different world right now, that you do it if you're a walker at all. Anything else, honey, I can give? Oh, yes.
During that time, I drove up to Mount Hood. I think I was around government camp somewhere.
Yes.
And you guys were camping there. And did a lot of people come up and meet you along the trail?
Okay.
That
Yeah.
weren't walking it?
Yeah.
'Cause I thought it was fascinating when I went up there and saw the situation.
She said that when she came up during the trail, she met us in Mount Hood at the main road. And she wanted to know if that was common. We stopped for 2 days there. That was first of all, we just stopped because we just did. We had, before we actually got to Mount Hood, we had some trouble with natives on the trail coming to Mount Hood. And we had to have police with us, believe it or not, police with us, supporting us. And so we stopped, and the wagons all went down below. And yeah, it was a marvelous. What's a marvelous time is that there's a poem in my book that Nancy wrote, and one of those evenings, I was able to read Nancy's poem to everybody that was there. And then from there, all the way in, and then we crossed over kind of around the corner and came into Wilsonville. Isn't that how we came?
Yeah, you came up down Mount Hood
But then we came around the corner and came up.
to Oregon City.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a little harder that time because we didn't have the openness of before. But it was if they offered it again and if I was younger again, I'd do it. It is just, yes.
Did you stop at the Phil Foster farm?
Did we stop at the Phil Foster Farms? I don't believe we went that close, but I have been to the Phil Foster Farms, but I don't believe we were that close. It was one of those things that we didn't stop a lot to view certain things. Sometimes if we were going along and we wanted to go back, if you had somebody with a car, a lot of the people that walked on the trail didn't have my husband, but they would walk and then they would bus them back to their cars and they'd drive their cars to the next spot we were sleeping. And then they would take the trail for however long we walked, and then they would bus them back to get their car and drive the car. It was a real oiled machine to make it work. It really was. It was fun. It would have fun. You would have enjoyed it. Anything else? Yes. Nothing? Okay. Thank you very much. And please come up and look. You may look.
That was going to be my one question to you. Will you stay up here while having coffee, cookies?
Oh,
and
please.
explain